Let's make sense of this.
Let's make sense.
Sense makers.
So I'm here with Tableau Tim. Great to finally meet in person after lurking in the comments for years. And mostly just trying to make Tim laugh and make Ravi laugh. And, so yeah, your first Salesforce conference.
Absolutely, yes.
Here in the States. What do you think?
Good. I think Salesforce have sort of a real polish around events, sort of a lot more scale to them. And so they bring a bit of that value. Sometimes a bit too clinical, but still I think there is a little bit more benefit than maybe what we used to. I think I miss the scale we used to have pre-COVID, right? So this is my first sort of post-COVID conference as well. So I miss that scale, but still great to see people after a long time.
I mean, I found myself running into friends and people that I've, making new friends and just kind of following everybody. And it's been really, I spent the majority of my time out of sessions. And so I've found, like, anytime we go to a conference, we say, oh, that was one, like, what was the most valuable thing, the time outside of the sessions. And so it's been a little unnerving to not, to feel like I'm completely missing out. It's been really good. So besides the kind of the machinery of bubbles and
robots and everything.
Robots. I mean, we have robots this year, not stuffed animals anymore. And so what I observed was like Salesforce starting to understand the community.
Yes, I'd agree with that. Going a bit deeper, I'd say starting to understand how they need to communicate with the community. And maybe being very specific about not just direction, but also sentiment as well. So I think they're starting to understand it. I think they're reading the room a little bit better. But that doesn't mean they've crossed the finish line. There's still things for them to sort of learn and understand. So
And I see that in a lot of my interactions. True to the core was really good. I felt heard. And like that they were kind of pulling the veil back a little bit more and saying, okay, well, this is what it looks like. You know, this is how we make decisions. And this is how we receive feedback from you. And so that was a super solid performance by everybody on the stage.
I feel like Salesforce didn't realize they needed to educate the community about how Salesforce works. I think when they first engaged with the community in a big way, they just assumed that everyone knows how Salesforce works. And that's actually been quite a difficult thing to learn as a community, but then also them as a company. And so I think we're starting to see the value of that. I'm really happy to see that they do seem to be able to exercise a bit of autonomy, separate from Salesforce, to keep a little bit of the sort of Tableau specific identity while still trying to evolve it, as well. So I think that's been good to see.
And did we hear this right? Like when the engineering lead was talking about testing, that they couldn't do testing? Which anytime you're watching the thing, you can see, like you watch how the product evolves and changes, and you go, it seems like they didn't think, like, why did this happen? Why did this error suddenly appear or go away? And now you're like, oh,
there's an explanation.
There's a reason why, why the post is there and why it does what it does. And and how the product responds. And I think for me as a developer, like, I don't run a product company. So like, what do you think of that? Of like, we all think we're product people. We all think we're designers.
It's interesting because I think we're also passionate about the product, and so that means we use the product. We have intuition of the product, but sometimes that puts us in a disadvantaged position because we're too close to be able to sort of step out of the vehicle and look around and steer, if that makes sense. We're part of the machine, if anything. But I do think we do have a good sort of sense of like what our users would resonate really well with, what our businesses would resonate with. And so if we reconnect back with that need and that sort of understanding, I think we can give them really valuable feedback about how they should be thinking about things, and how they should be thinking about the whole product suite, not just obviously Tableau. I think there's stuff they could do to bring Salesforce closer to the kind of Tableau customer they're trying to build. But then likewise, we need to see continued investments in things that really matter to the workflows that we have in flow now, right? Like the industry is moving really fast. It's a highly commoditized industry now. Like I think back, when I started Tableau just over 10 years ago, there weren't that many options.
Right.
Now there are very capable competitors at lots of different price points, really challenging the supremacy, let's say, of the incumbents, so Tableau, Power BI, Salesforce, Microsoft. And so that has to keep them honest. They have to keep pushing that, and they have to keep listening, both to the current customers and the future customers they want to attract. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, like reading the room, we talked about Salesforce reading the room. Like a lot of what I've heard is, what is the future?
Yes.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What do you think the future of an analyst is? So we came up building these things, but that doesn't exist anymore in the future.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think this conference is that this has been a very subtle message from Salesforce. In the conference keynote, there was one slide which basically said, the future of your role is going to change. I can't remember the exact worded, but the word, it said something along the lines like, your job's going to change. And I felt like that was a deliberate message from Salesforce saying, look, I know you're an analyst, you have a very sort of strong idea of what that looks like today. We think that won't be how it looks in the future. What I haven't seen them do is so very clearly paint a picture of what a future analyst is going to be doing in lots of different contexts. I think they've shown the flow with Tableau Next. They're so product focused. We've seen that in Tableau Next, but we've not seen enough of is sort of the non-product stuff, right? Like, what does it mean to be an analyst? What are the kind of demands that are going to be put on you? What is the kind of capability and skills you'll need to have in order to exercise those outputs? And so I feel like they've jumped straight to the conclusion. Here's a product that meets a bunch of things, but they need to spend more time, almost like if I'm a marketeer, it would be a little bit of a vision piece about what an analyst is, share that story, and fill that gap.
I heard a lot of like, if you take all the pieces, we're headed somewhere.
Yeah. Yes, but
we don't know where that somewhere is.
Yeah.
But you know what? We're going to be together.
Yeah. So I recorded a video with Ravi yesterday, and we described it. We described the current situation as being the Tableau Cinematic Universe, akin to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah. And the analogy we gave was that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there's sort of parallel timelines and parallel universes. And actually, if you don't pay attention, they all seem very disparate and disconnected. But if you're a super fan, you'll know that you've needed to pay a lot of attention to sort of follow those plot lines, for those plot lines to pay off, and for that sort of ultimate scene at the end when all your superheroes are in the same scene, sort of doing good. But along the way, Thanos snapped his hand once and caused a bunch of trouble. And, the protagonists needed to come back and do the snap to undo all of that, but still fight for what they needed. So it's a very tumultuous journey, and I feel like that's kind of where we are. Salesforce has decided, right, there's where we want to head. If they head that way, they're going to take a step away from a real large audience, right? Yeah. But their belief is that when they get there, actually, the community as a whole will be bigger, and we'll have new people in it, as well as some of us who they've maybe convinced over. But what they're not doing is giving us all the plot payoffs. They're not giving us all the payoffs that we need to have faith and trust in that vision, right? And so I truly believe everyone at Salesforce is super smart. Like, you talk to them, they demo their stuff, they know their stuff. Yep. But that payoff, those little snippets we need to see, the sort of organic intuition in the product that we've known in Tableau. I'll give you a very simple example. Someone asked me, hey, we have this side panel. What would you expect if you hover over the name of this item? And I said to them, you don't need to ask me that. Tableau Desktop already has this pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, open my laptop, showed them, hover, done. That's an expected behavior. Shouldn't even be a question.
Right.
What I said back in response is, that is intuition that as a team, you're missing. The fact you have to answer that question because you haven't actually understood that pattern in the desktop is in itself a challenge for you building the vision, because your vision has to recognize the heritage of Tableau.
And I mean, like walking around today, trying to get my fingers on the keyboard
Yeah.
and running into, let me show you.
Yeah.
Whether I was talking to the AI or to the sales rep,
Yeah.
like what product did we lose? What product cost us the most? Like what product lost us the most money?
Right.
And what product and region? And the answer should be tables in the East.
Yes.
And I kept having to prompt them of like, is this Superstore data? And they're just kind of like the fuzzy look of like,
What is Superstore? Yeah.
right. And so those types of things of like,
Yeah.
okay, like these are table stakes.
Yeah. They are very much table stakes. And the frustrating thing is, there's a simple cause of this. It's just Salesforce is a really large company.
Yeah.
And they've had a big turnover in lots of different teams. And at the end of the day, those people are still getting up to speed. The thing you can't replace, though, is that the sort of lived knowledge of the tool. And there's still many people in Salesforce who have that knowledge, who've been part of the journey in Tableau for a long time. But that needs to be shared, and it needs to be shared a lot faster, because at the pace they're moving, they don't have time to stop and ask questions all the time.
Right.
They have to hit the notes with a lot of the steps, a lot of the plot points. You know, we look at Infinity War as a movie. Kevin Feige and team had a very clear vision of what they wanted to achieve, and they made the right calls pretty much the whole way. And you know, when I talked to Ravi, I said the problem they had though is that they needed Robert Downey Jr., Captain Iron Man, and then what's the other guy? Captain America, Steve Rogers. That's not his name. I don't know the actor's name, but anyway, those two characters seem inseparable from this story. So even to move the story forward, what do? They bring them back.
Right. Yeah, I mean, to give those little payoffs that you're talking about,
Yeah.
of like, oh, I mean, somebody had a pineapple on the stage, and there's some joke there
Yeah.
that I wasn't around when it started,
Yeah.
but I was like, okay, yeah, I get
There's
it.
a reason.
Yeah.
There's a reason. Exactly.
And so here we are, you know, 2025,
Yeah.
we're at the conference, and so what are we looking for in the next year?
Great question. So if we step back a little bit, last year, Salesforce sort of announced this vision. Previous year, I think last year was the fourth wave, when they talked about the fourth wave, it
Yes.
was. And then between that and now, we've had a lot of sort of little presentations, a little bit of like a appetizer. What this conference needed to be was the closing of that chapter of sharing that vision and the start of a new one, which is about execution. To say, basically, we need to get our hands on the product.
Yep.
And by this time next year, I think everyone who's attended conference and even been vaguely interested in Tableau Next, but maybe comes from Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud or Tableau Desktop, knows exactly the mechanics of how they're going to interact with Tableau Next in their context, whether it's a team, a whole enterprise, or maybe just a small business, right? All of that should be clear. And I think it starts with pricing. I don't know if people caught this, but Ryan on stage did say we were doing some really exciting things with pricing. And I was like,
Nothing is ever exciting or fun with pricing. Like, I never go, oh boy.
Yeah, exactly.
New prices.
Exactly. So I think that's the first shoe that needs to drop. And I feel like it's going to drop alongside Next. So they're going to maybe shake up the suite. And I think they do that from two perspectives. I've heard a lot of talk about consumables.
Yeah.
And Tableau Plus already is just a subscription. And there are some consumables. There's resource blocks which allow multiple sort of Tableau prep flows to run at the same time, essentially concurrency for prep conductor.
Kind of the old server core.
Yeah, exactly. And so pricing needs to drop. Clarity about mechanics needs to drop. And I think data cloud in the Tableau context hasn't been fully figured out. It's very clear they're figuring it out.
Sure.
I think it's quite a mature thing on the Salesforce side. But Tableau data cloud as a standalone product next to Tableau Next, alongside Tableau Cloud and Tableau Server, that needs a much clearer picture. We saw a slide on stage with 6 products saying, this is a happy family. I think it was a bit disingenuous because if I ask, well, how does Tableau Prep work with Tableau Next? I've not seen one mention of any sort of pipeline or flow in Tableau Next, and no real idea of how I'm going to connect to a Tableau semantic model in Tableau Prep to use that to run something and then push it to, I don't know, a metric inside of thing. Like, and I'm fairly connected. I'm well connected. I know a lot about what's going on, and I'm struggling to sort of piece that together. So the customers are going to be in a much worse position. So over the next year, I need to be able to sit here this time next year and say, hey, I think we have a really clear picture of what they want. The difficult thing is that doesn't mean the customers are going to receive it well, and it doesn't mean that it's going to get adopted well. And I think that's the real test. Once it's out in public, how's adoption doing this time next year?
And that's what so many of our customers are still on server desktop prep,
Yes. Yeah.
on-prem,
Yeah.
maybe hybrid.
Yeah.
And it's just like, where do you go from here?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
what is the bridge? Not to bring in another product name of Tableau Bridge.
You could do a lot of things. What's the pulse on Tableau Bridge?
How do we go from here to there? Like, what's
Yeah.
the on-ramp?
Yeah.
Because everything we see, like, it's a year away at least.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about GA, we're talking about
Yeah.
which subset of the public cloud that you're in,
Yeah.
whether it's government or which government. And
Yeah.
so, I think that's the hard thing is like,
Yeah.
when I go back Monday,
Yeah.
what do I
What do you
do
say?
with this knowledge?
Yeah.
I went away for a week, and
I think after this conference, there's not much you can say other than maybe potentially understanding what Tableau Next is supposed to do. You now need to see if it does it.
sure,
Yeah, and it's not. We didn't get hands-on, so we can't say it does.
yeah. Can you tell me which product and region is doing the worst?
The simple question. And actually, that's a classic thing of like, you need to do the simple things right. Those are the things that people will do first
Yes.
to test. Just familiarity. What are you familiar with? Superstore. Okay, does it do the same thing? Oh, no, it doesn't. Wow. Okay, that's a different philosophy compared to what I'm used to. So then you start to question a bunch of different things, more than maybe you anticipated, and yet it's got the same name, Tableau. So that's the big challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
No
you
worries.
for the time.
No worries. Absolute pleasure.
For your contributions to the community.
No worries.
And so great to meet in person and spend this time.
Great to be talking to both of you, and loved it.
Yeah, this is really great. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. There you go.
Let's make sense of this.
Let's make sense.